Talk to the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, who is with me live in the House of Commons now. Hi, Mr. Singh. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much for making the time. I could wager a guess, and I think you might have already said it somewhere upstairs, but my guess is, based on some of the stuff I just spelled out there, you and your party will be supporting this budget.
Yes, we'll be supporting the budget. It's got the expansion for dental care that we've been fighting for. It's going to save families money. It's got the GST rebate, which has been rebranded the grocery rebate, which is something we've been long fighting for. It's going to save families on average $1,700 if you combine the savings from the dental care program and the grocery rebate, which is the GST rebate. This is real savings, concrete action to help people. We've been saying that the budget has to save money for people, and it's going to do that.
It is going to help them when it comes to paying their groceries, and it's targeted, I should say, 11 million Canadians there, or accessing dental care. Are you clear on the details on dental care, though? I know they've allotted more money, and I have a question for you on that in a second, but my colleague Joyce Napier was saying when they were quizzing the finance minister about when exactly each of these stages happens, that the answers weren't necessarily crystal clear.
Probably because we're the ones driving this file, so we can lay out. The agreement says that this year the expansion has to include children 18 and under, seniors, and people living with disabilities. That's the next phase, phase 2. And then the subsequent phases will broaden out to cover all Canadians that meet the criteria to be covered.
So that's going to guarantee of when those other phases will happen, though? Like, has the government been specific with you?
Yes, so the next phases will happen in the subsequent years in 2024 and 2025. So right now the expansion is for 18 and under, seniors, and people living with disabilities. Then we'll expand it over the next 2 years to include everyone that meets the criteria.
The cost of the program that the government is projecting has increased quite substantially, more than double, from $6 to $13 billion. Had you put any thought into, or had there been discussions with the government about pushing those costs a little bit down the road? And I take the value of the program. I understand the people whom it will help and the need is there. But given the sort of fiscal reality that the government faces right now and the desire not to pour oil on the inflation fire, had you put any thought or had a conversation about putting those costs or those investments down the road a little bit?
Well, we looked at this and we had a number of economic roundtables where we met with economists to kind of test our ideas. And they'd laid out that the measures that are targeted will not be inflationary. So that's why they mentioned that the GST rebate would not be inflationary. It's targeted. It's 11 million Canadians. It's significant, but it's targeted. Similarly, with the dental care program, being a healthcare coverage plan, it's not putting money into everyone's pocket. It's again targeted, and it goes towards a healthcare need, which will save people money that they can use towards their expenses. But again, economists have pointed out this is not going to be inflationary. We think it's the right investment, but we do think there's things that the government could have cut. We think there's billions of dollars in fossil fuel subsidies, which are significant, and they go to already profitable companies that could have been cut. We think that there's massive tax loopholes, which many organizations have said are resulting in billions of dollars of lost revenue that we can't afford to allow to continue. So those are areas where we believe more prudence could have been shown.
But on subsidies for fossil fuel companies, I think that what you're referring to are the tax cuts for carbon capture, many of which were introduced in the fall economic statement. What happened after the fall economic statement was the IRA and the United States and under Joe Biden introducing subsidies that make our incentives for carbon capture look like chump change, really. Did the government have any other choice?
Well, the carbon capture were new subsidies. We were talking about the existing ones that were there, Harper era, and continued with Prime Minister Trudeau, that were ones that we wanted to stop. We've been able to negotiate to stop some of the foreign subsidies that were also pretty significant in the billions of dollars. But there is a significant amount of subsidies that go towards already profitable companies that I don't think is the right thing to do. We should be investing money in incentivizing the fight against climate crisis, which is a good idea, tying that with strings attached to jobs and our good wages, which we've done. But there's areas where we shouldn't be spending money. Why would we give more money to a company that's already making more profits than they've ever made when we talk about some of the oil and gas companies?
Because you're trying to, in this case, incentivize them to use technology, which is very capital intensive at the outset, to reduce their emissions. And if the oil patch doesn't reduce their emissions, then really what are our efforts worth?
Well, we can require our companies to follow strict regulations. We can input regulations that you're making record profits, more than you've ever made. Well, we're going to put regulations in place now that you've got to also clean up your oil wells. Why would we pay them to do something that they've already, it's their damage that they've caused? And we're saying that you're making record profits, you should be required to also make sure you're investing in clean energy.
But again, I guess I circle back to, I take your point that they have a lot of profit. They had a banner year in 2022. But in the United States, they also had banner years, and the government there is still incentivizing the reduction of carbon emissions. Is it not incumbent upon our government to try and fight the good fight?
We should fight the good fight, but it depends on where we're investing. We should invest in new sources of clean energy. We can invest in new technology, invest in electric vehicles and electrification. Those are all new investments that will encourage a new kind of path. But with companies that are already making huge profits, to ask them to do the right thing, which is to reduce their emissions or to reduce the amount of carbon that they're emitting, that's the right thing to do. And that's just simply can be done with regulations instead of giving these already massively profitable companies in a time where we need to be fiscally expressing some restraint. I think it would be the right thing to do to focus on new technology gets incentivized and existing technology where there's massive profits being made. Maybe they could start doing what they need to do with regulations.
Do you think $70 billion in overall new spending is too much?
Well, it depends on where we're looking at the spending. There's areas where I've said we need to express, we need to show some restraint, not putting money in fossil fuel subsidies, not putting money in allowing for tax loopholes to lose us revenue. But there's areas where we could have done more to respond to the problems we're up against. We've got a housing crisis, and there's not any urgency that the government has shown to deal with that crisis. We've got a looming recession, and many economists have said we've got an EI system that doesn't cover most workers. So there's ways where we could invest in protecting Canadians against a recession, and there's ways where we could express more or show more restraint and save money where we shouldn't be spending.
So you think the government should have spent more?
I think the government should have showed different priorities. I would have shown different priorities. I would have made sure our EI system was working, but I wouldn't have continued with fossil fuel subsidies. I wouldn't have continued with loopholes that allow billions of dollars of lost revenue. So it's a matter of priorities. And the Liberal government and my priorities are very different. I would not have spent money where they spent it, and I would have invested more in other areas. Do
you think Canadians have that impression? I think that tonight I heard you come up to the microphone and take credit for much of what the government is doing in this budget. Would it not be understanding that Canadians kind of feel that you and the government are one and the same at this point?
Well, I would make the argument that no, the things that they're doing were things that we forced them to do. They voted against dental care 2 times in the past, and we forced them to do it. They showed that they were against the GST rebate when we first came up with the idea, and then we forced them to do it. These things would not have been in the budget, but for the fact we forced them. So the fact that they're doing something we forced them to do doesn't make us the same. It means that we were successful in forcing them. But our priorities are still different.
Even if they can take the credit and they can say in their budget today, we did dental care for you, we did a GST rebate.
They can say that, and it's true that it's in the budget, but we can also show them that they voted against it, they opposed it, they were against it before, and we made them do it.
Is there one, and this is my final question because I know your time is limited, is there, as you look ahead, now if you have, in your view, pushed them on those issues of dental care, of the GST rebate and things of that nature, what is the next goalpost for you? And I know you keep getting the question, like what's the point at which you back out of this? I think it's hard for Canadians to see there's any point because you don't seem to have drawn any red lines.
Well, we've got to be really clear. These are things that we're not just saying we did it. We have actually a document that shows that we forced them to deliver on dental care. We have proof that we did that. So that's concretely what we've been able to do. There's more things we need to get done by the end of this year. We need to see movement on a legislation for pharmacare. That we expect that to be tabled and passed by the end of the year. We want to see movement on the anti-scab legislation tabled and passed by the end of this year. So there's a number of things that remain. We'll keep on pushing this government. So far, we're a 4th party that has delivered a historic expansion of our healthcare system. We're proud of that. But we're going to keep on pushing for more help for people.
Okay, Mr. Singh, I have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.